Behind Hollywood's glittering golden age lurked shadows darker than any film noir. While audiences swooned over perfect smiles and dashing heroes, these leading men traded their dignity in back rooms and hillside mansions. Did you know at least one Academy Award winner began by selling his company to powerful producers? Tonight, we expose the 25 stars who paid for fame with their bodies. James Dean. Before Rebel Without a Cause made him immortal, James Dean was just another hungry Indiana farm boy sleeping on Hollywood couches. In 1951, at the infamous Chateau Marmont, talent scouts marked him as number 6 at elite private gatherings, where wealthy producers hand-picked companions for evening entertainment. Dean caught the eye of Rogers Brackett, a theater director who became his sponsor while controlling every aspect of his life. A former bartender recalled, "He had those sad eyes and messy curls. People liked him a lot, but most of all, he was quiet, didn't ask questions." Dean attended late-night auditions at hillside mansions, and insiders whispered that one evening with a CBS executive secured his first television role. Even more disturbing, a close friend revealed Dean was secretly filmed during a private encounter in a Wilshire Boulevard penthouse, footage later used to ensure his cooperation. Dean's haunted expressions on screen weren't acting. They reflected a young man trapped in a web of powerful men. When his mysterious car crash ended his life at 24, Hollywood insiders wondered if the pressure of his secret past had pushed him toward that final 85 mph drive. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando shocked a press party in 1975 by casually declaring, "I slept with anyone who could give me a part. Male or female, it didn't matter as long as they had power." Before becoming the godfather of method acting, young Brando hustled on small New York stages while entertaining wealthy patrons after hours. Director George Cukor discovered Brando, paying him $300 weekly for private rehearsals at his Beverly Hills mansion. It was Cukor who later introduced Brando to Elia Kazan, launching his legendary career with A Streetcar Named Desire. In a leaked personal diary found after his death, Brando listed 14 powerful men who had helped his career through intimate arrangements. One name was Jack Warner, the Warner Brothers tycoon who mysteriously made a potential scandal disappear in 1953 so Brando could star in Julius Caesar. Unlike others who hid their past, Brando flaunted it with defiant pride. He turned his survival tactics into swagger, using the very power dynamics that once controlled him to later control his own career. When asked if he regretted his climb to fame, he reportedly laughed, "Regret is a luxury for those who never knew hunger." Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson embodied 1950s masculine perfection on screen, but behind the cameras, he was Henry Wilson's premium gift at Hollywood parties. Universal Studios' internal memos described Hudson as obedient, discreet, and always ready to accompany clients if I nod. Before becoming a star, Hudson was sent to pool parties, yacht weekends, and private gatherings where he poured drinks, smiled on cue, and disappeared into bedrooms without question. A recorded phone call between Wilson and producer Ross Hunter revealed their arrangement. "He can handle 2 people a night as long as no one takes pictures." When Pillow Talk made Hudson a household name, he became the centerpiece of secret fundraising parties where studios secured millions in investments from wealthy backers in exchange for private time with their biggest star. Every publicity photo showing Hudson's perfect smile masked the pain behind it. After his death from complications of AIDS in 1985, a crumpled note was found among his possessions with 6 haunting words: "I was never allowed to say no." Those closest to Hudson knew his entire image was fabricated, his marriages arranged, and his freedom non-existent in a system that treated him as property rather than a person. Cary Grant. Hollywood sold Cary Grant as the ultimate sophisticated gentleman that every woman dreamed of marrying. The truth? Before transforming from Archibald Leach into suave Cary Grant, he lived with fellow actor Randolph Scott in a Malibu beach mansion that hosted Hollywood's most exclusive gatherings. According to legendary Hollywood fixer Scotty Bowers, Grant didn't just attend these parties, he orchestrated them. The mansion became known for lavish events where directors, producers, and financial backers mingled before disappearing into locked rooms with Grant and other young actors. One evening in 1939, a cinematographer witnessed Grant invite three major directors to his home. After vanishing upstairs for hours, Grant emerged with the lead role in Bringing Up Baby. Columbia Pictures' internal memos mentioned Grant's complete compliance with after-hours studio-arranged activities for key financial partners. Even after becoming one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors, Grant couldn't escape his past. Confidential magazine investigated a 1955 incident where Grant was spotted leaving the Biltmore Hotel at 2 a.m. with a European investor, just days before signing his contract for To Catch a Thief with Hitchcock. His 5 marriages did little to quiet persistent rumors, but Grant maintained perfect silence about his early years. He knew that in Hollywood, survival depended on keeping certain doors permanently locked. Clark Gable. Before he became the king of Hollywood, Clark Gable was a struggling 21-year-old taken in by playwright William H. Wright, who called him a stage apprentice. In reality, Wright provided Gable with clothes, food, and shelter in exchange for his total obedience. A neighbor from that period recalled, "Every Friday night, Mr. Wright would have guests. Clark would serve drinks with a smile and knew exactly when to slip away into the private room." After Wright's sudden death, Gable moved to Los Angeles with a list of powerful contacts that opened doors at major studios. MGM Records revealed Gable was once rescued by a prominent director from a potentially career-ending scandal so he could audition for The Painted Desert, the film that launched his career. Louis B. Mayer, the MGM mogul, reportedly sneered, "Gable knows the price of a tux and the price you pay to wear it on the red carpet." Even at the height of his fame as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, Gable maintained a murky relationship with director George Cukor, who was suddenly removed from the project. Industry insiders whispered that Gable pushed for Cukor's removal, fearing the director might reveal secrets from their shared past. The man who embodied masculine charm on screen carried the weight of his beginnings throughout his career, a past he buried beneath the crown of Hollywood royalty. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift's sorrowful gaze captivated audiences in classics like From Here to Eternity, but those expressive eyes held secrets from his early struggle. Before stardom, young Monty attended private auditions at a Bel Air mansion where director Joshua Logan was looking for a fresh face. After the session, Clift stayed for 3 days. An elderly housemaid later recalled, "He cried a lot, but when he left, he had a contract in his hand." Elizabeth Taylor, who became Clift's closest friend, revealed in her diary that he once confided, "I traded intimacy for a part. Every time I remember it, a part of me dies." In 1945, Clift calculated each favor like mathematics. Rent, divided by charm, self-respect, subtracted only as survival demanded. One weekend with a Park Avenue arts patron covered 2 months' rent. Another paid for the cashmere coat he wore in Red River. After his disfiguring 1956 car crash, studio executives worried whether his scars would affect ticket sales. Clift worried whether his swelling would expose the deeper wounds hidden beneath his skin. His addiction to alcohol and pills became a way to numb memories of the price he paid for fame, a debt he carried until his early death at 45. Tyrone Power. Before Tyrone Power fenced villains in Technicolor, he attended a vacation in Palm Springs with a 20th Century Fox producer. A staff member at the estate revealed, Power was asked to try on swimwear. Then, he was asked to try obedience. The very next morning, he had a 5-year contract. With his perfect matinee idol looks, Power quickly became Fox's biggest star, but his calendar remained filled with private appointments when not filming. His appearances at the Brown Derby nightclub came with whispers that he was paying debts with charm. His close friend, actor Cesar Romero, once confided, Tyrone knew that to stay where he was, he had to protect the image, even if the cost was never being allowed to tell the truth. Power's meteoric rise wasn't just talent. It was a series of unwritten contracts with powerful figures who expected returns on their investment. Watch Power's sword flourishes in The Mark of Zorro. Each graceful movement, a silent acknowledgement of the unnamed benefactors who transformed him from an unknown into a swashbuckling legend. His early death at 44 while filming Solomon and Sheba cut short a career built on beauty traded for opportunity. Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis embodied Hollywood dreams with his striking good looks and charming smile. But before stardom, Curtis bluntly told a co-star, "To get roles, I've done things that weren't in the script." In 1948, when he first auditioned at Universal, a producer looked him up and down and asked, "Are you obedient?" According to Hollywood journalist Robert Hoffler, Curtis spent an entire week living in a casting director's private apartment in exchange for his breakout role in Criss Cross, 1949. Curtis never denied these arrangements, later admitting in a censored interview, "I knew exactly how to use my face. It was the most valuable thing I had when I was young." By the time he starred opposite Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot, Curtis had achieved untouchable fame. Yet in his private journal he scribbled, "If people knew what I did to get this role, they'd never think I was sweet again." Unlike many stars who buried their past, Curtis developed a remarkable detachment about his climb to the top. He transformed his experiences into street-smart survival skills, turning his early compromises into an unshakable confidence that defined his later career and his reputation as Hollywood's ultimate survivor. Anthony Perkins. Before becoming Norman Bates in Psycho, Anthony Perkins wandered through New York, attending music evenings arranged by Roy Cohn, a powerful attorney who connected Perkins with media moguls seeking cultured, obedient boys to entertain guests. An anonymous industry insider told Confidential magazine in 1965, "Perkins was rare. He made people feel like they were the only one. In return, they gave him roles." Alfred Hitchcock allegedly bought out Perkins from another studio with a contract rumored to include a secret clause requiring Perkins to remain intimately available throughout the production of Psycho. In unpublished letters revealed in 2007, Perkins wrote, "I'm not afraid to die for a role. I'm afraid people will find out how I had to die slowly to earn it." After Psycho, Perkins was typecast not just on screen but in life. In 1972, he told a psychologist, "I'm no longer me. I'm a deal, a gift that was traded." The anxiety that made Perkins' Norman Bates so convincing wasn't acting. It was the genuine trauma of a man who had spent years performing not just for cameras, but for powerful figures who controlled his career. His twitchy mannerisms and nervous glances stemmed from real fear of exposure in an industry that consumed him completely. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter was America's golden boy in the 1950s, with his sun-kissed surfer looks plastered across teen magazines nationwide. Yet in 1950, Hunter was arrested at a private party in Long Beach, nearly ending his career before it began. A powerful producer bailed him out, not with money, but with an exclusive contract. Agent Henry Wilson whisked Hunter to notorious Canyon cookouts, where studio moguls evaluated young men like horses at auction. One Hollywood pool party filled Hunter's mother's refrigerator. A weekend trip to Catalina Island paid for the orthodontics that perfected his all-American smile. Hunter's public romances with Natalie Wood and Debbie Reynolds were studio fabrications. In his 2005 autobiography, Tab Hunter Confidential, he finally revealed the truth about his rise to fame. "I wasn't chosen for my acting. I was chosen because I was willing to be quiet and beautiful in the way Hollywood needed." The blonde idol who made teenage girls swoon lived in constant fear of exposure. He kept meticulous records in a battered ranch ledger: date, benefactor initials, grocery money earned. Every Technicolor laugh in his beach movies hides the calculation of a young man who traded dignity for his mother's security and his own chance at stardom. Rudolph Valentino. Before women fainted at Rudolph Valentino's smoldering gaze, Italian immigrant Rodolfo Guglielmi washed dishes in New York cafes. According to Emily Leiter's biography, Valentino was fired for getting too friendly with male customers, then introduced to a secret male review club called Mickey, where wealthy patrons rented beautiful young men for $50 per night. An acquaintance told the Brooklyn Eagle he didn't want to do it, but when someone threatened to call the police over his illegal residency, Valentino said yes, and every week someone came to take him home. It was one of these clients, producer Norman Cary, who eventually brought Valentino to California and helped land him the role in The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, 1921. Society matrons paid him to dance the Argentine tango in private parlors, with Dawn often bringing discreet envelopes filled with cash. These arrangements financed elocution lessons, diamond cufflinks, and his ticket west that transformed him into cinema's first global sex symbol. In a handwritten note discovered after his death, Valentino wrote, "The world calls me their lover. But the first night I lay still, no one kissed me at all." When heart failure claimed him in 1926, riot police held back mourning fans, none of whom knew about the bankers' wives still mailing checks marked personal to ensure their names remained unspoken. Sal Mineo. At 17, Sal Mineo grinned from lunchboxes as Plato, the troubled teen alongside James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. But the teenager's path to that iconic role began at a producer's home where, as he later told a friend, "They said I'd get the part if I could convince them I was soft enough." The next morning, his name appeared on the official audition list. After Dean's death, Mineo's career spiraled downward. The teen idol checks dwindled while rent demands remained steady. A hush-hush phone circuit offered quick relief. Private company calls at $50 a visit. Mineo stored every cash payment and client initial in a battered shoebox under his bed. His mother thought it held fan letters. In the 1970s, Mineo began speaking out about Hollywood's hidden horrors. A week before his murder, he told a CBS reporter, "I've got names, photos, tapes. If something happens to me, go find them." On February 12, 1976, as he stepped from rehearsal into a West Hollywood alley, someone plunged a knife beneath his ribcage. Police blamed random robbery, though his wallet and watch remained untouched. The shoebox was the first thing detectives seized, and a briefcase containing what friends called evidence of Hollywood secrets disappeared. Was Mineo's death really random, or was it a warning to others who might reveal the system that had consumed him? George Nader? George Nader was Universal's rising star in the 1950s, with leading roles in films like Away All Boats, 1956. What audiences didn't know was that Nader was sacrificed to protect Rock Hudson, a far more valuable studio property. According to Hollywood historians, Nader's career exploded after introductions at notorious gatherings at agent Henry Wilson's house. Wilson controlled a stable of handsome young actors, including both Nader and Hudson, arranging their private appearances for powerful industry figures. When Confidential magazine threatened to publish an exposé on Hudson's private life in 1955, Universal struck a deal. They would sacrifice Nader's career by offering dirt on him instead, protecting their bigger investment in Hudson. Overnight, Nader's promising career evaporated. Rather than fight the system, Nader accepted his fate with dignity. He quietly left Hollywood with his partner Mark Miller, moving to Europe and later Hawaii. The two remained together for over 55 years, proving that while Nader lost his career through studio machinations, he found something far more lasting than fame. Hollywood discarded Nader when he became inconvenient, but he reinvented himself as a science fiction writer, penning the Chrome series about gay robots in a distant future where sexuality wasn't weaponized against good men. Ramon Novarro. Ramon Novarro captivated audiences as the chariot racing hero of Ben-Hur, 1925, but his path to stardom began with music evenings in Beverly Hills mansions. According to Scotty Bowers, Novarro didn't just entertain, he was traded among powerful patrons who funded his rise at MGM. Born José Ramón Samaniegos in Mexico, Novarro fled the Mexican Revolution and arrived in Los Angeles in poverty. He worked as a singing waiter in clubs before catching the eye of actress Alla Nazimova, who introduced him to an underground network of wealthy benefactors who could advance a beautiful young man's career in exchange for private performances. As a devout Catholic, Novarro lived with intense internal conflict over his arrangements, building a chapel in his home while continuing to entertain powerful men who kept his career alive. When talkies arrived, his Mexican accent became a liability, and his value to the studio system declined. On Halloween 1968, at age 69, Novarro was brutally murdered in his Laurel Canyon home by two young drifters, Paul and Tom Ferguson. They tortured him, believing rumors that he kept a fortune hidden in the house. There was no fortune, only a lifetime of painful secrets. His death became a gruesome symbol of how Hollywood's shadow economy could destroy even its brightest stars. Van Johnson. MGM sold Van Johnson as America's wartime boy next door. Freckles, choir practice smile, hair parted like a Sunday hymn. Yet Johnson arrived in Los Angeles with only optimism and $13, quickly learning that studio cafeterias served kindness only to names already stenciled on dressing room doors. A discreet music patron offered a shortcut: attend charity teas, charm silver-haired benefactors, and never ask why envelopes appeared in his jacket pocket afterward. One Beverly Hills luncheon settled a month's rent. A Palm Springs garden party paid for tap shoes and headshot prints. Ever the bookkeeper, Johnson jotted each favor into a tiny spiral pad he nicknamed his Ledger of Blessings, balancing gratitude against dignity down to the penny. When MGM finally dressed him in khaki for 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, the notebooks vanished into his steamer trunk, but habits remained. Watch Johnson's films closely, and you'll notice he pauses a split second before each punchline, as if mentally signing the receipt for that smile. The boy next door image wasn't just acting, it was an elaborate performance designed to conceal a young man who knew exactly how many favors each opportunity had cost him. John Gavin. John Gavin was Hollywood's clean-cut leading man, with military polish and aristocratic features, starring opposite Lana Turner in Imitation of Life and Janet Leigh in Psycho. But his path to those roles began at high-stakes poker games in Bel Air drawing rooms. Fresh from the Navy and Stanford University, but flat broke, Gavin accepted invitations to private poker nights as gentleman company. His buy-in wasn't money, but impeccable manners and movie star looks. A former Universal Studios limo driver revealed in a 1984 memoir that Gavin was regularly driven to a Santa Monica apartment at midnight where men in tuxedos waited. No names, no questions. An hour later, he came out blank-faced and simply said, "Take me home. I need a shower." In return for these midnight meetings, Gavin secured roles without auditions. A Universal executive once admitted, "He was the perfect mask for the filth we were hiding behind the scenes." The polished diplomat you see on screen was forged in secret arrangements that transformed a broke ex-Navy man into a Hollywood leading man overnight. Ironically, Gavin's practiced charm and discretion later served him well in his post-Hollywood career. President Reagan appointed him U.S. ambassador to Mexico, where the political skills he learned navigating Hollywood's treacherous waters proved invaluable in international diplomacy. Farley Granger. Before Alfred Hitchcock cast him in Rope and Strangers on a Train, 20-year-old Farley Granger shared a cold water flat and counted lint for dinner. Salvation arrived via a celebrated Broadway producer who offered a Fifth Avenue guest suite, marble bath, stocked bar, and an unspoken retainer. Be charming at soiree, attentive at 3 a.m., discreet forever. Granger later called it being kept, likening the penthouse to a scholarship funded in whispers instead of grants. One winter under that gilded roof paid for voice coaching and the charcoal suit he wore to his Hollywood screen test. In his memoir, Include Me Out, Granger admitted, "Arthur taught me how to love, how to pretend, and how to lie down when I needed to keep a role." The arrangement continued for 15 years, with screenwriter Arthur Lawrence controlling every aspect of Granger's career. Every time Granger landed a new part, whispers followed. Who did he sleep with this week? A production assistant was once fired for joking about it on Strangers on a Train set. In one of his final interviews, Granger said, I was used, but I don't regret it because in this world, if you don't let them touch your body, they'll never let you touch the spotlight. Behind his nervous half-smile on camera flickers the calculation of a man who weighed desire against rent and decided the math was sound. Troy Donahue. Troy Donahue's golden-haired surfer charm made him the national heartthrob of the 1960s after A Summer Place. But rewind 2 years and you'd find Merle Johnson Jr. sleeping on a friend's couch with more sand than coins in his pockets. Agent Henry Wilson, who managed Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter, introduced Donahue to the Canyon Party circuit, Friday night poolside barbecues where studio moguls grilled steaks, evaluated young men like livestock, and slid allowances into pastel sweater pockets. At one such gathering in 1958, Donahue was summoned into a room where director Jack Warner and 2 wealthy backers waited. A server present recalled, "He came out 30 minutes later, face pale as a sheet. He hadn't been asked to act, just to let them see what he looked like without clothes. After that night, he was offered a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers." In a leaked journal, Donahue wrote, "Every time I appeared on screen, I had to erase a part of myself. After a few years of stardom, he spiraled into addiction, lost everything, and died in relative obscurity. The beach party idol who made teenage girls swoon carried the weight of those canyon parties until his final days." Guy Madison. With perfect teeth and matinee idol looks, Guy Madison was America's ideal man in The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok. But before fame, he was just an unemployed Navy veteran scraping by in Los Angeles, keeping himself afloat by working at the kitchens of elite mansions. A former employee of the Beverly Hills Hotel revealed Madison was hired not just to serve food, but to be part of the decor. Guests would request him shirtless, standing still like a statue for the first 20 minutes of dinner parties, then disappearing into the host's bedroom later in the evening. An anonymous director wrote in a memoir, "Guy didn't mind. He was gorgeous and understood his role. I once saw him smile as someone handed him a room key like it was a routine he'd rehearsed 1,000 times." One Catalina weekend bought Madison the convertible that became his calling card. Another paid for acting lessons that transformed a waiter into a television cowboy. Once stardom hit, Madison never mentioned those earlier days, but Hollywood never forgot, especially those who spotted him in hotel bathrooms at 3 a.m., washing away the evening's work before returning to his public persona as America's straight-shooting hero. Dennis Hopper. Before Easy Rider made him a counterculture icon, Dennis Hopper confessed, "I sold my soul for a supporting role and One Night in Beverly Hills." In the mid-1960s, Hopper had been blacklisted from major projects due to his reputation for violence, insubordination, and substance abuse. Desperate to return to the screen, he received an invitation to a private casting party in a Mulholland Drive mansion. According to director Nicholas Ray's memoir, Hopper spent the night with an older financier in exchange for a small role in The Sons of Katie Elder, 1965, the part that put him back on Hollywood's radar. Hopper's ex-girlfriend, actress Brooke Hayward, once said, "Dennis would endure anything, even humiliation, if it meant stepping in front of the camera again." In a 1983 Rolling Stone interview, Hopper admitted, "I used to be a bastard, but before that, I was a good boy, serving rich men just to do what I loved." The rebellious spirit that later defined Hopper's iconic roles wasn't just acting. It was the authentic rage of a man who had been forced to compromise himself for his art. His later defiance of Hollywood conventions came from someone who had seen the industry's darkest corners and was determined to create a new system where young actors wouldn't face the same choices. William Haynes. Flashback to the late 1920s, when MGM's top male draw was a wisecracking Virginia farm boy named Billy Haynes. Before the limos and mansions, Haynes survived New York by renting his charm to theater patrons who tipped more generously than any chorus line paycheck. One discreet weekend covered train fare to Hollywood. Another bought the tux that landed him Brown of Harvard and a string of hit films. Then studio boss Louis B. Mayer delivered an ultimatum: ditch your longtime partner and marry a starlet or lose everything. Haynes just laughed, packed his costumes, and walked away from his contract. Using the very Rolodex he'd built while hustling, he flipped his survival skills into a new empire: interior design. He decorated palaces for Joan Crawford, Jack Warner, and ironically, Mayer himself. While other actors who refused to play by Hollywood's rules faded into obscurity, Haynes became wealthier and more influential as a designer than he ever was as an actor. His client list included the very studio heads who had once controlled him, proving that freedom could pay better than fame. Behind each cocky wink in his silent films was a man already calculating his escape route, one that ended with millionaire checks, not studio chains. Don Murray. Before sharing the screen with Marilyn Monroe in Bus Stop, Don Murray was a struggling actor taking bit parts to survive. At a private dialogue session in a producer's home, Murray was told his future depended on how convincing he could be off-screen, not just on camera. According to the unpublished memoir of a casting assistant at 20th Century Fox, Murray went into a private audition with a major director. 2 hours later, he came out pale as a ghost. When I asked if he was okay, he whispered, "I think I just sold my soul to be seen through a lens." Murray never explicitly confirmed the story, but in a 1982 interview, he offered a cryptic remark. "In Hollywood, some things are never written into contracts, but everyone knows what they have to do if they want their name on the dotted line." The clean-cut actor who played the innocent cowboy Beauregard Bo Decker opposite Monroe carried the weight of these unwritten contracts throughout his career. While he continued working steadily, he increasingly turned to independent productions and eventually directing, perhaps seeking creative control that had been denied to him during his early rise to fame. Richard Chamberlain. Long before Dr. Kildare made Richard Chamberlain television's favorite healer, he learned bedside manners that had nothing to do with medicine. Fresh from UCLA and broke, Chamberlain was pressured into after-hours auditions held past midnight in Beverly Hills. A former assistant told Hollywood Insider, "He never left the studio with his lover. All meetings happened at his private apartment, the windows always shut, the curtains always drawn, the phone always unplugged." Directors, producers, and even journalists evaluated candidates not on performance but on physical compliance. Chamberlain was once asked to privately engage with a network executive before a new role was green-lit. When a male co-star suggested going public with their relationship, Chamberlain coldly replied, "If I lose this role because I love you, will you be able to feed me?" He wore the mask of the perfect gentleman for 40 years, living in constant fear that one photograph or indiscreet comment could destroy everything he'd built. Only after retiring did he dare admit the truth about his life. The doctor America trusted was a man living in perpetual terror of exposure, treating his own life like a disease that must be hidden at all costs. Gene Kelly. Before tap dancing through puddles and singing in the rain, Gene Kelly was a dance instructor in Pittsburgh with dreams bigger than his wallet. In 1937, he joined a private training group in New York, run by choreographer Charles Weidman, where physical obedience mattered more than choreography. According to another trainee, "We didn't rehearse. We were judged by our bodies, our obedience, and our flexibility, both on stage and off." Kelly passed the screening and was recommended to director Stanley Donen, who would become both his longtime collaborator and, according to whispers, his secret lover for nearly a decade. Even after achieving fame, Kelly couldn't escape the grip of the system. Studios pressured him into exclusive social engagements with investors. A former Variety journalist recalled, "Gene Kelly once danced the entire night at a Bel Air mansion, but there were no cameras, no stage, just 3 powerful men and a contract waiting to be signed." In a letter to a close friend in 1959, Kelly wrote, "They want me to dance for them. But no one ever asks if I'm tired, if I'm sad, or if I'm disgusted with myself. The legendary grace that made Kelly a dance icon masked a man who performed not just for audiences, but for power brokers who controlled his destiny. Scotty Bowers. If anyone knew the hidden side of Hollywood's golden age, it was Scotty Bowers. A former Marine, Bowers became the unofficial pleasure coordinator for the entire industry from a humble gas station on Hollywood Boulevard starting in 1946. Bowers wasn't just an observer, he was an active participant in the system, introducing young men to VIP clients and often joining them himself. Rock Hudson, Cary Grant, Spencer Tracy, they were all clients. I was just the middleman, he claimed in his 2012 memoir, Full Service. He arranged over 1,000 encounters over 3 decades, creating a discreet network that connected struggling actors with the powerful men who could make or break careers. They came to me because they had no choice. They needed roles, they needed rent, they needed to survive, Bowers explained. Unlike others who kept silent, Bowers eventually told all, naming names and detailing arrangements that had remained secret for decades. His testimony provided the final piece in understanding how Hollywood's shadow economy operated, a system where beauty was currency and fame often came with an unwritten contract. Bowers wasn't just a participant, he was the architect of a network that both exploited and protected vulnerable young men in an era when exposure meant not just career death, but potential imprisonment. What do you think about these revelations? Are they isolated incidents from a bygone era? Or does this shadow system still operate behind today's glamour? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, for every star whose name lit up a marquee, there was a price paid that no audience ever saw. The real question is, has Hollywood truly changed, or has it simply gotten better at hiding its darkest secrets?